Back in April, the Samurai Wallet founders were arrested for money laundering. Well, we finally got an update on this case, and we're going to dive into it right now. Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive into it, we are just going to do a quick word from our sponsors. If you are looking for some beautiful craftsmanship and you are a pet rock enjoyer, check out the Bitcoin Relo Triangle. That's right, guys. 16 ounces of solid titanium for all of you pet rock enjoyers, and that is at CypherSafe.io. Also, don't forget to check out BTC Pins at btcpins.com. He is making some of the most iconic Bitcoin pins out there. Boom, check out the pin collection. That's right, guys. It's absolutely awesome. Get 5% off using the code Pleb Underground at btcpins.com. I know it's a little bit of a different format for the people who enjoy clips, but this week we do not have our normal weekly episode. So I'm going to do a clip about the story that we've been covering for a while. And for me, I'm particularly interested in this because I think it has much bigger implications than just Bitcoin, right? Like I think that this has wider implications about, we'll say, personal privacy. So anyways, let's dive into this. A letter filed on July 3rd in the case against Samurai Wallet founders Keone Rodriguez and William Lonergan Hill reveals that the U.S. government has agreed to the release on bail of Hill, also known as T-Dev. The parties have agreed that Mr. Hill should be released on bail. Hill's defense requests that Hill be released to his home in Lisbon, Portugal, pending trial, which is opposed by the U.S. government, not to his sister's basement in Brooklyn, which the U.S. government supports. Hill's defense argues that the prosecution has already generated considerable controversy, referring to an open letter written by Senator Cynthia Lummis of Wyoming and Senator Ron Wyden of Oregon in May, criticizing the prosecution's unprecedented and unlawful change in interpretation of the law. Hill's defense states that FinCEN guidance has long made clear that peer-to-peer apps like Samurai do not qualify as money transmitting services. It highlights that the fact that Mr. Hill offered to openly for 9 years evidences that they, like the senators, also thought it was legal. Hill's defense argues that even Google appeared to think the operation of Samurai Wallet to be legal. The letter states that Google first offered Samurai Wallet an Android-only app to Android mobile device users in its App Store in May 2015. It remained available through April 2024 when Google removed it following Mr. Hill and his co-defendants' arrest. Throughout those 9 years, Samurai Wallet operated openly and notoriously, and Google made it available to the world's approximately 3.9 billion Android users. Google is known for its robust app review process, which requires app developers to comply with local laws, regulations, and industry standards. The letter states that according to the U.S. government's argumentation, Google would be an unindicted co-conspirator by publicly offering and profiting from the sale of an app the government now claims was unambiguously intended to assist individuals engaged in criminal conduct to conceal the source of the proceeds of their criminal activities. Putting the charges in context, the defense states that to stop Bitcoin wallet providers from providing privacy and security services or to force them to police their customers as banks must, the government has not sought to change the law or even FinCEN's guidance on it. It has prosecuted individuals operating a service they had every reason to believe was legal and stretched to decorate the charges with decontextualized quotes that attempt to sketch out their agreement to criminal transactions the government does not allege they knew about in advance or explicitly agreed to. So, where does that leave us, right? That's really the big question. Well, what does this all mean? Okay, so a couple of things. I think that the government, right? Like it's kind of strange because sometimes we make this assumption that the government is dumber than we think, and other times we also credit them with being incredibly sly, manipulative, calculating, and how could I say this? Like to be like architects of like a grand scheme. So somehow the government is like incompetent enough that it can't figure shit out, but at the same time, it also runs the biggest puppet show. So, or is part of the biggest puppet show. It's like we can't have it both ways. Okay. Or maybe we can. I don't know. But I can say this. Okay. I could say that essentially, I believe that this, what we're seeing right now, okay, this is just part of the show. I still have this sinking feeling that Samurai was this honeypot, okay, to essentially try to find criminals and essentially just be able to monitor them for as long as possible. I don't believe that it had any other use. And again, I'm not saying necessarily that both the founders in any way are part of like, you know, some government organization or whatever it is. I don't have any evidence to support that in any way. But what I can say is that essentially, right, the people who did facilitate what is determined to be criminal activity through the use of the Samurai Whirlpool product, they've leaked data to Samurai Wallet if they didn't set up their own Whirlpool instance, right? And unfortunately now government agencies have access to that data. And whether or not these people are guilty, in the end, this data is now the government's possession. So to me, I genuinely feel like this was the plan all along. I can't help but think that way. I understand that that's like, you know, probably extreme conspiratorialist, right? Because it would assume that that was like this grand plan all along. But also at the same time, we could argue that that's something that just simply came about, right? Where essentially this service, you know, they started providing their apps and they started providing their services and it was going fine. And then all of a sudden, right, the government agencies started to take notice of it, and they knew full well that they didn't have a leg to stand on when they arrested the founders of Samurai Wallet, right? I believe they knew that they didn't have a leg to stand on, but it doesn't matter. It makes no difference. Like, I think that this is what people don't understand. Like, when it comes to the legal system, once you're dragged into this shit show, it doesn't make a difference anymore. That's it. You're in the system. It's like they win. Anyways, obviously, like I'm not saying this is over. This is far from over. But look, I do think that, you know, this development is good for the Samurai Wallet devs. I do think that they're making strong points. I mean, one of the points that they did make, that their lawyers made, was essentially, you know, being able to arrest Apple, right, for every single MacBook user that ever committed a crime with a MacBook. I mean, this is, again, right, like, so at this point, so what's going to happen, right? Are we going to start suing the people, like the miners out there who are mining metals that are then, these metals are being made into weapons and these weapons are being used to hurt people? Like, this is really, really strange. And it, in my eyes, it almost seems, again, by design, in order to create these layers of abstraction from personal responsibility, right? The further and further we abstract these layers from personal responsibility, the more foreign all of this becomes, and the more, I guess, dependent on the state people feel comfortable with. Anyways, yeah, guys, the Samurai Wallet thing, we are going to continue to cover it. I've made a playlist now on our channel so that essentially every single Samurai update that I'm going to do, I'm going to put in there. I also made a Tornado Cash video a really long time ago, like when that first happened, right? Because the Tornado Cash, which again, Tornado Cash is a mixing, that was different. That was a mixing service, a centralized mixing service, whereas Samurai Wallet was a collaborative spend, okay, which is different. But still, it's an attack on privacy. Any way I look at it, I don't really care. You know, like, that's an attack on privacy. And, you know, to me, that is an attack. An attack on privacy is an attack on personal freedom. So, yeah, got this playlist. Going to be adding these videos to that. Guys, that does it for today. Sorry we don't have our usual weekly episode with the guest, but have no fear. Next week, we will have our weekly episode, and I've got a very special guest that is going to be explaining to us how essentially Bitcoin fixed voting in his country. Anyways, guys, have a good one. Catch you on the next one.